George Hedger, who has retired from the Noble Foundation as a horticulturist.
Horticulturist, that's correct, yes.
George, welcome to Oklahoma Moments.
Thank you very much. I'm proud to be here.
Well,
I enjoy coming over to Wilson.
Oh yes, and we enjoy having you at Rotary, at the Rotary Club.
Thank you. I've been a member of the Ardmore Rotary for quite a while, and I was a charter member of the Rotary Club in Idabel, Oklahoma whenever I first joined.
Oh really? That's great. Well, George, this is your life.
Well, I don't know who's interested in my life. But,
well, yes, you've had a very interesting life, and we'd like to, I'd like for you to share with our viewers about your life. But first of all, I want you to go into your life because you're going to get a copy of this, and if you haven't gone into genealogy and family history for your children and grandchildren's sake, tell who your parents were and where you were born. I noticed you were in eastern Oklahoma. You mentioned Idabel.
Yes, I was born and raised in Idabel. My parents were H.R. and Kara Hedger. They originally were my dad was from South Dakota, my mother from Iowa. They met way back quite a few years ago, before I was born, by the way. They met in Stillwater, Oklahoma, whenever it was Oklahoma A&M College. I guess it was about 1913 when my dad graduated from A&M. My mother graduated in 1915. And they were married somewhere around 1919, after World War I, whenever he got out of service. And then they moved to Idabel, latter part of 1919, early 1920, where he went into farming. Farmed, for 47 years. He retired from farming in 1957.
And you couldn't have blown him off of that farm in eastern Oklahoma with sick of dynamite.
That's true. And what his primary occupation was growing fruits and vegetables and raising beef cattle. And also, we always had several dairy cattle around, which if you grew up during that time, why, you know you had to have a milk cow. Yes, ma'am. And that was what I grew up doing, working on the farm until I graduated from high school. I never had a job that paid anything.
There was plenty of work around the farm.
Oh, yeah, until I did graduate from high school and went off to college. Pardon me, Corrina. But anyway, my parents raised 6 kids on the farm, 4 boys and 2 girls. And my oldest brother grew up to be a horticulturist also. Graduated from Oklahoma State. He graduated from Oklahoma A&M College. And
what did the A&M stand for?
Oklahoma Agricultural and Mechanical College. Okay. And then they expanded it whenever they made it Oklahoma State University of Agriculture and Applied Sciences, I believe. And now they've changed it to where it's a School of Agriculture. The agricultural part of the university. School of Agriculture and Natural Resources. So they're trying to cover everything there. So anyway, my older brother graduated from Oklahoma A&M. I had another brother who attended there for a while until Uncle Sam got him. And then I started school at Oklahoma A&M and graduated from Oklahoma State University. A lot of folks say, George, you must have been awfully slow learner because you started in 1948, you graduated in 1958. Uncle Sam had a little to do with that also.
Well, I hope no one says that to me, because here I've started back to school.
Well, yes.
Take me 50 or 60 years.
I won't ask you how long you were out of high school. But anyway, you should be proud of yourself for going back. And I don't think you ever get too old to learn. And
there's so much to learn.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, times were tough back in, well, particularly in the years whenever I was growing up, which was right in the middle of the Depression in the 30s, early 40s. But, you know, we didn't have very much materially.
But no one else did either.
And we didn't know the difference.
That's
because
right.
Everybody else was in the same boat. And as a matter of fact, during those days, since we were on the farm, we had chickens, we had produce, we had cattle, we had hogs. So we always had something to eat.
And your mom canned. I know she canned.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness, yes. And baked bread.
Yes. Hot rolls.
Oh, yeah. And all that. But times are so much easier now, and yet we've lost
the closeness.
Yes. The family closeness is not like it used to. I guess mainly because we move out, we go away to obtain jobs, and so we don't get a chance to get together as a family as frequently as we did.
And the letter writing art is lost.
Yeah, it's email now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And answering machines has done away with the personal contact, the voice, and I miss that.
Yeah, I don't like to talk to machines. It kind of makes you feel a little stupid. But anyway.
When you go through these business things on handling business and all, and someone finally says hello, and you're waiting for them to say push another button. You mean you're a real live person?
yeah, right. But we have lost a lot of personal contact, but particularly with families. There's not as much family togetherness. And even though we have more of the material things,
we're missing more.
Well, yes, because we don't have time. Everybody is going different directions all the time.
Everybody has their own vehicle.
Yeah.
There's none of that piling up and filling that vehicle full and going to friend's house or going to church or whatever.
Oh, yeah. You know, whenever we go to church, we may go in 2 different cars, or maybe even 3 if the kids, grown-up kids are going. We have lost, I think, a lot of the family togetherness and what really binds families together and holds them close together.
Prosperity is not always what it is built up to be.
Yeah, that's
because I'm like you. I see, and I remember, and it took the whole family working together, and if this child made some money, it was put into the household in order to survive, and this one, it wasn't mine, it was all together.
Yeah.
And you knew all your cousins' names,
yeah.
and was so proud to see them. Now I think they frown if they think someone's coming to see them. Yeah. You have to call and make an appointment. You don't just drop in.
That's true. Yes, and speaking of cousins, when I was growing up on the farm, we did live out of town a couple of miles, and our cousins usually came and spent 2 to 3 weeks every summer with us. We had a large barn, which was both for holding livestock and also for hay. And
y'all had a blast in the hayloft.
Oh yeah,
and jumping out and swinging on the rack.
and there've been more broken bones falling out of the barn, getting pushed out of the barn. And that's one of the things that growing up as a kid, we didn't have all the things that the kids play with nowadays. And I'm speaking of...
But you created.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We did it with what was available. You know, we had corn cob fights, which was a pretty regular feature at the Hedger place on weekends. People from our friends from town would come out, and we would have corn cob fights. And, you know, that is not real dangerous unless you soak the corn cobs in water and make them really heavy. And you get hit upside of one of those, side of the head with one of those, why, you remember it for a week or two, or at least for a day or two. But also, we used the inner tubes we'd cut into strips and stretch them on a little rubber gun that we would call them, and someone stick their head around the corner of the barn, you pow, you know.
A clothespin was back here. My brother said the same thing.
Yeah, and they didn't cost anything.
Did you ever make any stilts and use some of that rubber, some of that tire to fix the strap to hold on?
Yes, we used to walk on stilts, you know, feel a lot bigger than we really were. And but those were the kind of entertainment things that we used to occupy our time, and you made lifelong friends doing those things without having to have expensive toys.
Yes, and you know, back then when you had a birthday party, no one else brought any gifts.
Oh, no.
Now then, if you have a birthday party, there's little sacks of treats for every child and little gifts for every child that's invited. Yeah. I was surprised to see that at one of my grandchildren's birthday parties.
Well, for example, birthday, we didn't celebrate them too much.
No.
I mean, we were lucky if Mother made a cake.
That's right.
And
just a simple
cake. Maybe one candle on it, which we would blow out. And but that was really what we looked forward to on birthdays, was having that cake, because cake was a treat. You know, I guess my mother probably was the most indispensable farm hand that we had, because
she
not only participated in chores and everything, she also fixed meals. And in the summertime, in fall, when we would be harvesting peanuts or potatoes or whatever,
hogs,
or butchering, she had to prepare the meal for all the people that came in. Butchering was sort of a community project. You know, we would get the neighbor people around, and they may have a hog or two that they would butcher. We'd butcher one or two. And the old black wash pot, cast iron pot, build a big fire in that and get the water just boiling hot, and have a barrel.
Did they put the toast sacks over the hog and pour the hot water over it, or did you dip them?
No, we dipped them, but we poured the hot water into a barrel that was at an angle, and you'd slide the hog down into there and then roll him over and get them good and scalded, drag them out, and put another one in if it was still hot enough before we butchered another one. And then you'd scrape
all that hot water. To those that's watching, the hot water caused the hair to turn loose.
Right.
And you could scrape it off. Yes.
Scrape the hair off, and then you'd hang them.
I got in on some of the scraping, that's why I remember.
I got in on that, and also helping to hang them up. You would hang them by the hind legs and butcher them, open them up. And
it's an all-day event, wasn't it? Everybody worked hard way into the night at 10 o'clock, and my dad, I'm sure yours too, Mother would fix scrambled eggs and brains. Did your dad like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, you didn't waste anything because you wanted to make the ham and the bacon and the sausage and the chops and all last just as long as they could. So you ate that other things that you couldn't cure first. And yeah, we ate what they call it, the hog jowl.
Yes.
And the brains with brains
Mom
and eggs.
pickled feet. Mom cleaned those feet and pickled feet.
Well, now, I didn't really. Pickled feet wasn't my favorite.
I didn't know anyone else that ever picks pickled feet. And years ago, I was in I guess it was in Virginia, and it was a half bar and restaurant. And I saw a senior professional, a jar of pickled pig feet, or hog feet, or I think it said pig feet, on this gallon jar. And I ran back and I said, I can't believe that. I didn't know anyone but my mother feet.
Oh, yeah. That was, I guess, a standard fare. And, of course, any lean meat that was on cuts other than the ham, the
like the tenderloin.
shoulders, yeah, and all of that, the waste part, you would take that lean meat and use it right away, in beans and things like that. And then we rendered
the rest out into lard.
Into lard.
And then the rest went in. Mom made lasso. Is that what your mom did?
Yes. And cracklings.
Yes.
He made cracklings out of the skin and that. And
I never liked them when I was a kid. I guess I ate some, but now then I get to missing Mom's cracklings, and I buy some, and I can't find any that will taste like my mom's cracklings. Have you tried?
No, I really didn't care for cracklings.
Well,
either.
I didn't, but I got to missing Mom's cracklings.
You would break them up and make crackling cornbread.
Yes.
And I could eat that. But, growing up on cornbread, I love cornbread.
Oh, yes. Cornbread and milk.
Cornbread and beans.
Yes.
And cornbread and milk, yes. But really, those things you'd learn to appreciate, because if you didn't eat anything else. But that's all there was.
That's right.
A lot of times. I mean, we weren't destitute.
No, but I say we were poor, and I thought we were very poor because there wasn't any dollars floating around. But like you said, we had chickens to kill, to bread. Mom had turkeys, geese. We had eggs, and we had vegetables, and all of this, fruit trees, and then like you said, the milk, the butter, beef, and hogs. So we weren't really all that poor, but yet it seemed like we were.
I was just visiting the other day, and my wife and I were talking, and growing up as a kid, we didn't eat a whole lot of steak or beef, mainly because at that time we didn't have deep freeze to
take care of all that.
To take care of beef, and you couldn't preserve it like you do pork with hams and bacon, sugar cured and
the old smokehouse that cured
the
meat out.
And that is the main reason why most every farm had hogs, because you could cure the meat and you could eat it for a long period of time. In the summer, you just didn't butcher a beef because there was no way to keep it until they began to get a lot of communities would get
those lockers.
Frozen lockers. Lockers where you would carry your meat in and they would cut it up.
You rent them?
Yeah, and you rented them.
Kind of like these storage lockers that people rent for their furniture and stuff.
And I guess that was probably the forerunner of storage lockers, only they were frozen.
I remember the one here in Wilson was H.L. Morris, H.L. Morris and Lerma. He had the
locker over here.
Yes.
Well, but those are fond memories, and I'm not sure what the kids will grow up remembering these days.
Computers.
Yeah, and it's just a different ball game now, and I'm not sure that I would want to go back to those old days because it was kind of tough, and just. One of the things that I do remember growing up is that Saturdays, everybody went to town. Everybody went gathered in Idabel.
You couldn't find a place to park on the street, could you?
No. You couldn't hardly walk on the sidewalks because everybody...
So many people.
The merchants in town, and this was back during the early years of the World War II, in order to get people to town, they'd have a drawing every Saturday. And each merchant, for every $1 spent, would give a ticket, a coupon, and then they would put all of these coupons, and they have 2 or 3 drawings. One of them might be a prize of a $25 merchandise, maybe a war bond in those days they call them, and those type of things. And everybody from 30 miles around would be in Idabel for the drawing. And, pardon me, the merchants would stay open on Saturday nights until probably 8 o'clock. And then during the week, they would close, around 6, something like that. And except for the hardware, they'd stay open until there was anybody still left in the store. And another thing, whenever we went to town to buy groceries, flour, sugar.
100-pound sack.
Yeah. But we didn't pay cash. We didn't use a credit card. Didn't write a check. Put it on a tab, and at the end of the month, we'd pay up. And
and you didn't go to town and go to the grocery store that often.
No, that's true. And but when you got to hook up the team onto a wagon and drive into town, and that was most of the transportation during the early 40s, because you couldn't get gas. You couldn't buy tires without a coupon, a stamp. And so whenever you did get your gasoline coupons and your tire coupons, you wouldn't use them until you just had to. We kept our vehicle at home almost all the time, unless we had to haul hay or haul a load of produce.
George, during those times, do you remember the big boxes that would have Rex, big blue letters Rex, and it's supposed to be imitation jelly, somehow because sugar was rationed? And then the people that didn't have the cows and stuff, they had some kind of, it looked like lard, but this yellow stuff, and you mix it up to make butter?
Well, that was that's when margarine first came out. It would just be white.
White, and in that little package.
It had a little pill in there that you burst. And it was orange, and your butter would tend. But we didn't use that stuff because we milked, used to get the cream off, and we made our own butter. And
could you see people today eating that?
Oh no. It tasted about like lard. It wasn't even good for cooking.
I thought, how did we all live? Lard. Now you can't even, I don't think you can see lard on the shelves. Well, it was lard.
I think cholesterol is a new invention.
I think so too, because my dad lived to be 90.
Yeah.
And he had all this. He had to have sausage and all these things.
One of my favorite meals to this day is still biscuits and gravy and sausage. And it's hard to beat. It's almost like dessert.
And if you go to the doctor, they'll tell you not to eat that.
No, but you just make lean sausage. But anyway, all the products of the farm, that really I remember best is the vegetable soup Mom made, homemade bread. Ooh, and she would bake about 3 times a week and make 2 or 3 loaves each time she baked. Coming home from school on baking day, and the bread would be fresh out of the oven and melt real butter.
Making my mouth water.
On it, and that was like ice cream and cookies.
And that yeast smell going all through the house.
Nothing
And those
like
yeast
it.
donuts, homemade yeast donuts and everything.
Yep.
But, well, I'm sure living on the farm and with a large family, there were accidents, and you didn't run to the doctor then. How did your mom doctor you?
Well, you know, the home remedies, I don't remember two of them.
I'm
many
sure you
of them.
had Vicks and
We had Vicks and mentholatum.
Cloverine sac.
Yeah, those things. And of course, aspirin was the big thing.
Yes,
you know,
aspirin.
we took aspirin for whatever.
Everything.
It didn't matter if you had a pain, you took aspirin. And
it was Bayer, wasn't it?
now that's about all there was.
Yeah.
But other than that, I do remember everybody in the wintertime smelled like either mentholatum or Vicks because they wore the bandana around their neck laced with Vicks. And that was supposed to ward off colds. I don't think it did. But we lived with it.
May have kept everybody away that had a cold term.
Fortunately, I came along after the flu epidemics of the late in the 1900s,
yeah.
in early 20s, whenever the flu just decimated the whole country.
Yes.
Saw a program on TV the other day about that, and it just reinforced the things that my parents had told me about.
Wiped out communities.
Oh
didn't it?
yeah, and there would be, maybe it would wipe out 4 out of 6 people in a family. So those are things which fortunately I've been able to miss, and that's one of the good things about the modern day. We do have all the vaccines and all the treatments for diseases that we didn't have back then. And I guess one of the things that I did miss out on, which I got in on as far as catching, was back in 1949, I came down with polio.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And that's a little humorous story about that. I was at Oklahoma A&M College whenever I was between my freshman and sophomore years, working in the summertime, came down, illness and vomiting and fever and all, and so I checked in at the infirmary. They diagnosed it with a spinal tap, and they had area hospitals where they would send polio patients. And I went to Guthrie, to a basement over there in the hospital there. And there was a kid that was, he was about 8 years old that they moved in after I'd been there a year or two, and we were visiting. He was in the top bunk and I was in the bottom bunk, and I mean, they had us stacked in there. And he said, he was from Stillwater also. He said, what's you in here for? And I said, well, I guess it's polio. That's what they tell me. He said, I said, you can get out of my room. He didn't realize that he was down with it either. But I went through that with very little residual problems. A period of time there when I couldn't raise my left arm off the bed, and they had moved an iron lung in because I was getting where I couldn't swallow. And you know, that's whenever you really appreciate the people at home and all from your church that are praying for you and sending cards and all that.
Definitely.
And so anyway, after about 6 months or so of rehabilitation, exercises and therapy, I went back to school.
And here you are.
Yeah, and but anyway.
Well, tell me about your career You retired with Noble Foundation. And tell me about some of your career.
Well, after the military, I went into the Air Force in 1952, in 1953, sorry, and was in there 4 years. And whenever I got out of the Air Force, I needed another year to graduate from the university. And so I finished there, and I just felt the need to get married, you know.
I started to say, we can't leave your wife. We can't leave your lovely wife out.
The woman of my life came into my life that I married, and so for some reason or other, she felt like I ought to be getting a job. To support
a typical woman.
To support us, and so I began to look around, and well, actually, I had applications in with the Federal Aviation Agency, and but in waiting for them to respond, gosh, you know, they always got to go through things. And so I had an opportunity to go to work for Oklahoma State University at Ida Bell on their experiment station. And so I had told them to wait about as many times as I could, waiting to get a response from the Federal Aviation Agency. And so finally I did say, okay, I'm ready to go to work. And I was superintendent of the experiment station at Ida Bell for 6-7 years, from 1958 until 1965. And but anyway, after I went to work for them, within 2 weeks, I received a notification from the FAA that I had been accepted to go into one of the classes for a air controller. But you know, you make a commitment on a job, and so I wouldn't resign to go with them. So I worked down there for about 6 years or 7 years with the university, and the position opened up with the Noble Foundation, and a friend of mine had the previous horticulturist job there.
And the Noble Foundation did not have the prestige at that time in those years that it has now. World renowned. Not
as well known. They did have a good reputation.
Yes, they did.
And so a friend of mine who was a horticulturist had taken the position with the Kerr Foundation over at Poto, and so I had the opportunity to go to work with the Noble Foundation. And little did I realize that I would be there 30 years. You know, I don't know that anyone really thinks that far ahead whenever they take.
You just took one day at a time, and you loved your work.
Oh yeah, well, and that's
and it
the
was
only
a great
reason,
environment too.
And that's the only reason I stayed here 30 years. I had great fellow employees to work with, and a good administration. There's not a better place to work than
Were you
Noble
involved
Foundation.
in the research? Research?
Oh, no, we were primarily involved in agricultural consultation. And, we did have small research plots that each individual would have some involvement with. In the research area, the agricultural research was primarily in plant breeding and a little bit in livestock research. Mostly we were working with farmers, consulting, making recommendations.
Improving.
In conservation and production recommendation. And then about 8 years before I retired, I became director of the agricultural division. And until about a year before I retired. We looked for a replacement, and for the last year I was more or less working on trying to finish up some projects that I had, and between the time I started, I think we had in the agricultural division of the Noble Foundation, we had, I believe it was 16 employees. And when I retired, the agricultural division had about 50 employees. So you can see how much, and the whole entire foundation grew from about 30 employees when I first went there. No, it was about 36 to 150.
And from one smaller building to spread out all over, and it just keeps expanding.
Yeah. And in the 2 years since I have retired, the number of employees has increased to a little over 200 now.
I know every time I go by, now that I go to school and I'm out in that way, I mean, they just keep building new buildings and expanding. It's great.
Well, you know, you're always proud to be affiliated with an organization that their main concern is the improvement of the life of the community, the state, and even the nation. And I was so proud whenever whenever the foundation made contributions to University of Oklahoma, to Oklahoma State University, higher ed in Ardmore, various universities around, the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation, too numerous to mention, but over the years, the Noble Foundation has donated and given over, I'd say well over $50 million to charitable
Isn't that great
and
tonight?
educational organizations.
I'm having Mary Jane Noble on my show here in a couple of weeks.
She's as fine a person.
Yes.
You know where she grew up?
Down around your...
Idabel, Oklahoma.
Really?
Yes.
Well, she's a delightful lady to visit with.
Yes.
And, well, George, we're running out of time, but I want you to tell your children's names, and if you have any grandchildren, and what church you and your wife have attended and active in. I know you have been. And some of the things, well, we've got about 5 minutes here.
Well,
so
okay. When you get to having fun, you forget.
Yes, I forget the
a lot
time.
of these things. We belong to the First Methodist Church in Ardmore, and I've been a member of the Methodist Church all my life. We have 3 children. The oldest is my daughter, Tammy, and she's married, lives in Edmond, and has our only grandson, our only grandbaby. As a matter of fact, his name is Zach. And then my middle son, Matthew, lives in Ardmore, and he's a sales rep for Benny Keith Foods. And then my youngest son just graduated from Oklahoma State University in this past June, and is living in Oklahoma City right now. And so neither one of the boys are married. And that concerns me because one of them's 30 years old and the other's 27. And
you're wanting them grandkids.
I do have one more grandbaby on the way.
Well, good.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to it. Our daughter is expecting, and a little brother or a little sister for Zach, and we're certainly anticipating that.
And I know you will have time to enjoy it and want to enhance their lives.
Yes, yes. Matter of fact, I have to watch Grandma because she always runs off she'll take a day or two and go up to Edmond, where my daughter lives.
I'll have to get with her. My daughter lives up there now.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Y'all can share rides.
Well, George, it's been great having you on the show today. And,
well, it has been my pleasure, Corrina, and I've enjoyed visiting and reminiscing.
Oh, yes.
Have you got a minute?
Oh, sure.
Well, I always, you know, one of the things that I had happened to think about as I was about a ninth grader, I believe, in high school. And everybody was pretty much rural. And in class one day, we walked in and sat down, and everybody sniffing, you know, and something smelled. And eventually, it smelled like a skunk. And so they got to questioning, what in the world is the odor? Well, it was one of my classmates.
He'd been
he had trapped a skunk.
The night before he'd gone hunting.
And you don't get rid of it. But he had skinned the skunk, and so, you know, you had to go to school.
Yeah.
Well, they made an exception. They sent him home. But he couldn't go home until the bus ran because he lived about 10 miles out in the country. And but anyway, that was everybody then. You know, you used whatever methods to earn some funds, and kids, they skinned possums and skunks.
My brothers did that. Remember those boards that that you stretch the hides over?
Right.
My brothers went hunting every night almost.
Yeah.
My brother, youngest brother, got sent home several times.
Well, those are things that you remember with a little bit of fondness, but it's been a good life.
It's a thing of the past that is lost. Yeah. We've lost it, and it'll never be recaptured. And we might not want to go back there, but it's precious memories. And we are making history. That made history. That's Oklahoma history.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
Well, I am too, and it's so good to have you here today. And